Thanks for joining us again. We just finished our film screening of Isrealism, and I think it's, first off, my name is Janae Capella. I represent House District 5 in the state legislature, and it's such a privilege to be able to share this space with you and to have two incredible panelists joining us. I would also like to shout out Senator Shimabukuro for also joining us as well. Thank you for supporting and for the work and the resolutions that your office has put forward. We have a number of staffers here from the state legislature, and then we're also starting an IG Live so that people can join us for our panel. I think the conflict that we're seeing in Israel and Palestine is so heartbreaking, right? And I think calling it a conflict doesn't even touch the reality of what this is. There's legislation moving through the state capitol right now, calling for a ceasefire, and I feel like that's the first step that that's the most basic step that we can take when we're fighting for a world that frees all of us and a world that uplifts all of us. I'm going to toss it over to our panelists. We have Fatima and Imani. Both are going to join us. I'm going to let them introduce themselves because I feel like I can't do it justice. For anyone who's joining on IG Live or the streaming, type in your questions and we'll try to make sure that our panelists can answer them. And then for anyone here in the room, just raise your hand and let's get this discussion started. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you to our panelists.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fatima Abed. My family lives in West Bank and in Jerusalem. My father, my stepmother, my siblings are all in Ramallah, and I also have family that is in Jerusalem right now. I grew up in New Jersey, and I am just really grateful that I live on an island that understands what colonialism is like, and it's unfortunate, but it is the safest place that I feel right now, and I appreciate each one of you being here, and thank you so much.
Aloha everyone. My name is Imani Altimus Williams. Is this working? Okay. I grew up here in Honolulu. I'm from Jewish Voice for Peace, Hawaiʻi. My mother is Jewish and my father is Black with distant Choctaw ancestry, but I was raised here by my mother. Jewish Voice for Peace is the largest Jewish anti-Zionist organization in the world, and our local chapter here is, like, our core leadership is predominantly Jews of color and women and queer folks. We just really strongly believe in abiding by Jewish values, which are justice and questioning. In October of 2022, I had the opportunity to go to Palestine and actually see a lot of the things that I was hearing about, and it was a lot more, it was so much worse than I could have imagined. But I can talk about that more as we go forward, but that's who I am.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions, we're available.
Maybe, you'd stop right, remind me with, when you went there, this was already pretty shocking. I can't imagine the sense of seeing it in person. Could you tell me what your thoughts were when you went there and saw it firsthand?
Yeah, so a little bit of context. So I did not have the upbringing that these folks had in the film. My mother, basically I grew up going to temple for like the high holy days, like just really, really holy days of the year. And then we do Hanukkah sometimes, but she wasn't very, very religious. So I wasn't raised very religious. But I have some family members and cousins who had a more similar upbringing, and some who actually ended up joining the IOF and they didn't have that upbringing, but they found a sense of belonging in like Hillel spaces on college campuses. So this film just helped me really understand them a lot more. But even though I didn't grow up with this upbringing, I think also something that kind of always had me questioning was growing up here and being very aware of occupation. And I credit that to my mom, I credit that to our kumuhula, who also helped teach me about occupation when I was growing up. I had this opportunity, every Jewish person has the opportunity to go on birthright, so to go on this free trip to Israel. And when I went to the Honolulu Waldorf School, and when I was a senior in high school, two things happened, where once my English teacher invited a Palestinian man to come and speak with us. And hearing someone from Palestine, who is also brown, and being a brown person, I don't understand how you can question someone's actual lived experience. So that definitely had me thinking and impacted me. And then I had someone came to visit our class also, who had previously gone to our school, and now at this point he ended up going to Kaiser and then had graduated, and he came back to talk to the students. He was Jewish and Japanese, and he said, don't go on birthright, go to Palestine instead. And that stuck with me a lot, but I still questioned, should I still go? I had cousins who were like, take the trip. I did it, take the trip, just like, then you'll learn about, you can go to Palestine afterwards too. And ultimately, like for me, I felt it doesn't make sense for me to feel like I don't feel a connection to this place, and for me to have a free trip when I know other Palestinians in the diaspora who just, their families are there and they don't get this free trip to their homeland, like it didn't make sense. So I eventually decided not to go, and then took that opportunity after I aged it's up until like 32, and so then I was like, well, I'm gonna go to Palestine and do this route. And so I went on a delegation called Eyewitness Palestine, which our delegation just happened to be predominantly Jewish and Palestinian, actually, and some other Arab folks and a Puerto Rican person as well, who had the Puerto Rican person had also identified a lot of correlations between occupation there too. But some of the things that shocked me, I mean, I can say some positive things too, that were Palestinians, I think, understand the distinction between Judaism and Zionism better than most Jews do. Like, everyone that I met there was like, oh, you're Jewish? That's great. We don't hate Jews. We hate occupation. And I have a hard time even getting family to understand. I don't identify as a Zionist. Zionism has been around for, less than 150 years. Jews have been around for thousands of years. So that was something that was really eye-opening for me in a positive way. I also felt extremely safe. Ironically, like, I felt safer in the West Bank than I did in other parts. My mom ended up getting COVID, and Palestinian folks were extremely, she was also on the delegation, and they just really took care of her. And she went to a hospital where they were like, you should go to this hospital, it's the best hospital, but we're not allowed to go to that hospital. We went into some areas in Hebron where there's a street, if you're Palestinian, you cannot walk on that street legally, and was seeing graffiti everywhere that said really horrific things, like death to Arabs everywhere. And our guide we had to go separately, even going through the checkpoint, because we couldn't have the IOF soldiers recognize that he was bringing in folks to show them the reality. And so we had to kind of go separate, and he ended up being handcuffed and blindfolded and questioned because he took another group earlier that morning. I mean, there are just so many things that were really eye-opening and shocking for me, and heartbreaking, and I think I'm still processing years later. But those are some of the things that come to mind right now.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you folks could also talk about, there's the ceasefire resolution, and then there was also the funding for the UN that was changed drastically, and in many ways doesn't even support Palestinians anymore. But aside from the resolution that's moving, or crossing over from the Senate, what other things from the state and from the state legislature can we work on and try to support Palestinians?
Well, I definitely would say, make sure that you go to the rallies and the protests if there are any. Definitely, if you're working in office, talk to your representatives, talk to your bosses. And we're trying to get the House Reso to be heard. So right now, there's a big push on our end to have, constituents call and email their representatives. Right now, we are trying to get it heard in the JHA committee, and then if that doesn't happen, it will be the CAI committee. So anything that you can do to talk to your coworkers, talk to other people in Ledge, and tell them about the film. You can rent it online for $5, and also have them be open to Palestinian voices and Jewish voices in those conversations. If they want to schedule any meetings with either Imani or I or another member of Jewish Voice for Peace, they are more than welcome to call us, to email us, and we are happy to have those difficult discussions.
I was wondering if you could also talk about the connection, I think, between the colonization here in Hawaiʻi and the colonization that people in Palestine are facing, because it's very stark. I think it's very clear that it's quite terrible, and there is a connection. So I have come across people that are Native Hawaiian that say that this is not our fight. But I think that, can you make that connection that it is our fight? Because I think colonization that happens anywhere is an issue for all of us.
So I'm also Puerto Rican, so I'm Puerto Rican and Palestinian, and so for me, I have seen colonialism on both sides, and in Puerto Rico, there's a lot of similarities with what's going on in Hawaiʻi, and I went to Palestine for the first time a few years ago to see my dad after 20 years, and to meet some of my siblings that I had never met. They're all American citizens. They were born in California, and they moved over there when my grandfather got sick. So I would say, as somebody who is a guest in Hawaiʻi and has been living here for about 7 years now, I have learned a lot. I'm still learning about the struggles of Kanaka Maoli, and it's so important to me to continue to learn as much as I can, because every time I learn something new or I hear something else, I just feel that pull, that connection, and it's like, when I first started working here, I actually worked as a tour guide, and one of the things I had to learn was the history of Hawaiʻi, and we started at Iolani Palace, and so I didn't want to give the message that was on the script. I actually did my own research, and I decided that I was going to tell the story of the Queen and how Hawaiʻi is illegally occupied. And in doing some of my research, which I'm still learning, like I said, I realized that we're not that different. And I do feel like, the fact that Hawaiʻi government here is funding weapons to Israel, I think that is a direct connection, a tangible connection, that our money is going to fund a genocide in another country. And people here, like, the cost of living is so high and the pay is not great. And so your money, from your paychecks, is being taken out to go fund a genocide. That is everybody's issue, How's that any different than what my cousin said in the beginning about how the IOF takes money from the Palestinian paychecks to fund their genocide against their own people in Gaza? So we're not helping each other by keeping separate. We need to unite and we need to be together. And I don't want to stay in this struggle, because I'm hoping that we never have to use that term again. And I don't want to say fight. I say that I'm hoping that we're together for each other and for our future and for our present, so that our kids can grow up in a world that they don't have to worry about being bombed, that they don't have to worry about where their money is going, and being responsible for killing another human being.
I think also something that comes to mind with the connection is I think about the Palestinians that came to Mauna Kea to show their solidarity, and the people that came from all around the world, because of recognizing it's not just like, if we're not all going to be free, like if someone's not free, we're all not free. Like it's literally like we can't win this on our own. Like and I'm sorry, I have lack of sleep, and so my coherence is, but it's very necessary for us to, and when I say win, I just mean for everyone to like live with freedom and dignity. We have to be in this together because we're not strong enough on our own. And I also think of, and I think of Haunani K. Trask, that she did talk about Palestine. And I don't want to like misquote, but I'm pretty sure that I've read something where she did talk about like the occupation in Hawaii, and there looks different, but, and hopefully this never happens, but we don't want this to look like what it does look like in Palestine in the future. And so I think that that's something to also be aware of, because Zionism was talked about in its first iterations as a colonialist project. Like Theodore Herzl, who's one of the founders of Zionism, talked about colonialism. At one point, it was going to be in Uganda, not Palestine today. And they took a lot of inspiration from the U.S. and how they colonized the Americas. So we also don't want other countries to take inspiration from Israel and make what's going on in Palestine look like, happen in other places as well. And I know folks like Punahele, and there's different Native Hawaiians that have gone to Palestine on the same delegation that I went on, to make those connections between Native Hawaiians, between Hawaii occupation here and occupation of Palestine. So I think more of that education is critical.
Does anyone have any other questions?
I just wanted to uplift you all for being such an important part of my learning in Hawaii, and I know that JVP wasn't super active or wasn't as organized as it is now, and so I just wanted to uplift both of you up there, the other organizers that I know aren't in the room, as someone who's been lucky enough and privileged to attend some of the rallies, attended the Isrealism screening at the Church of the Crossroads, and other events. I just wanted to uplift you all. I guess we're here in a moment in the legislature where we have about a month left. I guess I'm curious what your thoughts would be, post-legislature, depending on what happens in the session with 5 weeks to go. What are your thoughts about where the movement goes in Hawaii from here? I know UHF plays a big role in this. Just curious, where you guys see this moving post-legislature, and unfortunately, I don't think the conflict is going away anytime soon, so we all got to be in this for the long term. So, kind of a question, kind of a comment, but just, and I know we're all right in this moment right now, but, we all also got to think about what's happening this summer and all that.
I think one thing, at least from like JVP perspective, is yes, this is like a long fight, or I like how you put it better, not using fight and struggle, but we are in this for the long haul, and I think, part of I wasn't bat mitzvahed, and I wasn't super pulled to the temple here, and part of it was because I didn't always feel a space of belonging where I felt like everything was fully aligning with my values as well. And so I think for us at JVP, we really want to contribute to this movement of sort of unlearning together and providing safe spaces for folks to question and unlearn together. So we're going to be doing teach-ins and other things, but also a Wrestling with Zionism workshop for Jews that is going to be a safe space where people can say the wrong thing also, and we can kind of unpack everything together in a way that, and hopefully create a space that feels safe and authentic. And I think about my cousins who ended up joining the the IDF, when going to Hillel, they didn't grow up super Zionist, but they went and they were looking for a place of belonging at the university, and I'm like, I wonder how they would have been if there was a space like JVP for them. So I think that that's part of what we're excited to cultivate.
Just, I think with Rise for Palestine, which is the organization I'm a part of, our focus is uplifting not only voices of Palestinians, but also voices of marginalized people, especially women and queer folk. So, we have a project that's lined up in the summer. We're also going to be focused on trying to move more into Congress and kind of pushing for that. We are working with a couple of organizations on that that have a stronger connection with Congress. And so we're just gonna hope for the best and, not really expect it, but hope for it. I got off the phone with my dad before coming here, and he doesn't like to talk about anything ceasefire related. I can't really tell him what I'm doing. When it's brought up, he just says, it doesn't matter, a ceasefire doesn't matter anymore, because it doesn't matter, everybody in Gaza is gonna be dead, is what he said to me. And that is the expectation, and unfortunately that is the reality. So we just have to focus on, it's not gonna get better, like that's it, Gaza's gone. So we kind of just have to focus on what we can do to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and it doesn't happen to the rest of West Bank and the rest of Palestine. Israel is now attacking Lebanon, Syria, and then surrounding countries as well. Anybody that stands up for Palestine, Israel has their eyes set on them. They are the 4th strongest military in the world, and they do have nuclear weapons. So if you have to have a conversation with someone about Hamas shooting rockets, remember that they can nuke us at any point, and that we have been living under an apartheid oppression for over 75 years. And a lot of people will have different things to say about this. I don't agree with what happened on October 7th. I will say though that they are resistance fighters, and they are doing at their best in order to, in some twisted way, protect the people in Gaza. Again, I don't agree with any violence. I don't condone it. I know that they are just trying to make a big name for themselves in order for people to know where Palestine is on the map. And in some sense, it's working.
I was wondering if someone can talk about the climate for free speech at UH Manoa. I know there was a period a number of years ago when Friends of Sabeel was very active, that there was a counteroffensive from the Zionists trying to get people fired. I think Salim Ahmed probably lost his job at the East-West Center because he was outspoken for Palestinian rights. But I'm wondering if it's a relatively free speech area or if there's a serious threat. And Colleen Hanabusa, of course, was very active there for a while in trying to suppress freedom of speech about Palestine.
I don't know a whole lot. I do know, thank you for that question. I do know that, the Students and Faculty for Justice in Palestine group has been active for years, but within the last number of months has grown a lot. And unfortunately, for years, some of the wonderful events that they have put on in November for Decolonial November, when they bring over Palestinians to educate and to share about their life experiences, that there's always been pushback, and I know that there is pushback towards some of the leaders at the university, and I don't think that they have a whole lot of grounds from what I've heard. The sort of the professors and the folks that are leading that, I don't want to say attack, but leading that front against the leaders of SFJP. But I wish I knew more to speak at that. I didn't go to UH, and where we work in collaboration with SFJP a lot, but I don't know enough to give more of a response.
I only know a couple things that I heard. I don't go to UH, but I did hear at one point that they were trying to tell people that they can't talk about Palestine on campus. And then also for KTUH, I've done a couple interviews there, and actually the DJ just got fired. Yeah, and so I'm not sure exactly what the connection was, if it was because of, I don't think it was just because of Palestine. I think that, so this DJ in particular is very outspoken about liberation for all people. And they are a person of color. And I do feel like, and this is just speculation, that might have had something to do with it, especially in the growing months where more interviews were being had. And so, like, if you want to hire this person, please message me on Rise for Palestine. I'll give you more information. They're an amazing interviewer, an amazing DJ, and would be a blessing to have. So, I will say that there is censorship, but it's being, from what I understand, it's a little more subtle, where they can kind of slide under the radar instead of being outwardly racist. So, we have time for maybe one more question, if anybody, one or two more questions. And if not, then...
If there's no more questions, I just want to mahalo you folks for the work that you're doing and for being here with us today. I think there's a lot of education that needs to be had, and it's you folks, and I know that Fatima, especially having such a close connection with your family being there, I know it's not easy to sit on that stage and rehash it over and over again, so thank you both very, very much.
Thank you, and I appreciate everybody here, all the staffers, all the legislators that, you know, Janae and Miley, you guys are amazing, you know, like, thank you guys so much, and we are gonna continue to do what we can, and it's not gonna just be a ceasefire. Like, I'm not gonna stop until Palestine is free and my dad can go see the ocean. Thanks.